where true hearts shatter, hidden truths rise, and every tale cuts deep. Here, we reveal unfiltered stories of betrayal, lost love, and the strength it takes to begin again. If you've ever loved, lost, or learned the painful way, you belong here. The first time I sensed something was off wasn't when she ignored me. It was the sound of her laughter. That high, polished laugh I'd heard before, but not aimed at me in months. We were at her boss's party, a glittering event filled with people wearing suits that cost more than my car, and smiles that didn't touch their eyes. I'd dressed up for her. Black blazer, the tie she picked, even polished shoes I never cared about because she said it mattered. "He's important, Daniel. Please, be on your best behavior." So I went, thinking I was there to support her career. But the moment we stepped inside that mansion, I realized I was just a prop she reluctantly brought along. "Dan, this is Robert," she said, barely touching my arm as she introduced me to her boss, a tall man with slicked-back hair and a glass of amber liquid in his hand. His eyes drifted over me like I was furniture, not her husband. And she didn't correct him when he called me David 10 minutes later. The night swirled with expensive perfume and hollow chatter. She floated from group to group like smoke, always 2 steps ahead, laughing at someone else's jokes, brushing someone's arm as she spoke. When I tried to join in, she cut me off with a polite smile. "Oh, Daniel, could you grab me another glass of wine?" I did, thinking maybe I was reading too much into things. But as the night went on, the truth settled heavy in my chest. I didn't exist there, not to her, not to anyone. It wasn't just the silence. It was how she glowed when I wasn't beside her. With me, she was distant. Without me, she was alive. I stood near the glass wall overlooking the city, watching her tilt her head, her fingers resting a second too long on Robert's arm. That same laugh again, the one she once saved for me. My chest clenched. Near midnight, I slipped onto the balcony, the cold air cutting through my suit. I pulled out my phone just to keep my hands busy. That's when I saw it, a message on her screen before she locked it. "Can't wait for them to leave." Sent to Robert. Not a group chat. Not a work text. Personal. I didn't react. Not then. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who accuses without proof or causes a scene among powerful strangers. So I watched. I waited. And I realized how carefully she had planned this. She didn't bring me to celebrate, only to look respectable. "Married women move slower in that company," she once said. "Unless their husband looks stable and reliable." That's all I was, a placeholder. When she stepped outside, cheeks flushed, wine half gone, she smiled like nothing was wrong. "You okay? You look pale," she said, brushing invisible dust from my sleeve. "I'm fine," I answered, voice colder than the night air. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. The breaking point wasn't a fight. It wasn't shouting or tears. It was when Robert came out, placed his hand on her lower back, and she didn't flinch. Didn't move away. She introduced me like a stranger. "Oh, Robert, this is Dan. He's in software, or something." I reached to shake his hand. He didn't bother. And she didn't correct him. That's when I walked out. No scene, no anger. Just silence. I left the untouched whiskey on the table, put on my jacket, and walked out of that mansion. She didn't follow. Not that night. The drive home was quiet, just the hum of the engine and the ringing in my ears. Every mile felt like a wall rising between us. I sat in our dark living room until 3 a.m., waiting for the sound of the door. When she finally came home, shoes in hand, she didn't look surprised. "You left," she said flatly, as if I'd interrupted her routine. "You didn't notice for 3 hours," I replied. She tried to explain, said I was imagining things, that Robert was just her boss. And the message? It wasn't about you. No guilt. No regret. Just irritation. That's when I knew. I didn't matter anymore. Not as her husband, not as a man. I was an accessory she'd outgrown. The next morning, I didn't rage or beg. I called my lawyer, the same one who handled my brother's divorce, and started quietly moving my accounts. She didn't notice. 3 weeks passed. She stayed late at work, wore new perfume, smiled at her phone more than at me. And I let her. I let her bury herself deeper. The night I finally left, it was raining. I packed one suitcase, my documents, and a single photo of us. Our wedding picture. Not because of her, but because of who I was that day, a man who still believed. I left a note on the kitchen table. You wanted a husband who makes you look stable. Now you can look strong alone. No anger. No drama. Just truth. She called 12 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning, a text. You're overreacting.
Come home.
Funny how a house stops feeling like home overnight. Weeks turned to months. She reached out occasionally, but only when her reputation began to crack. Whispers spread at work. Robert was transferred after an HR complaint from another woman. Her little kingdom began to crumble. But I was gone. New city. New apartment. A quiet life. One without the ache of being invisible in my own marriage. People ask if I miss her. I miss who I thought she was. I miss those nights we dreamed of a future I didn't realize she was already rewriting. Do I hate her?
No.
I just don't care anymore. And that's colder than hate. I heard she left the company 6 months later. Rumor was Robert stopped defending her once the whispers turned to complaints. I never reached out. Because walking away wasn't revenge, it was freedom. Every betrayed heart remembers a single moment. Not the discovery, not the argument, but the decision. The moment you stopped trying to be seen. Mine happened on that balcony, with city lights below and her laughter echoing inside. A laugh that no longer belonged to me. I turned my back on it that night and never looked back. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, while you stand right beside it. Have you ever stayed somewhere you were invisible, just to avoid the pain of leaving? Share your story below. And if this one struck a chord, subscribe for more real, raw stories of heartbreak, resilience, and new beginnings.